Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. Desert Bus is over and we're back. I'm Serge. Joining me, I have a Jer.
Hello.
An Alex.
Are you a wizard?
I'm not, but maybe Ben is?
Technically, they're grotesques and not gargoyles.
So, not a wizard. Reminder that this podcast was brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Let's start the episode the way we start every episode, with the best card that you're not playing, and up today is me. And I'm going to talk about a spicy, as the premier lands pilot in the format, I want to talk about a spicy piece of lands tech. That is Shizo, Death's Storehouse. This is a legendary land. Taps to add a black to your mana pool, or for a black and tap, target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn. Now, you're probably asking yourself, but Serge, lands decks don't care about creatures. Why am I playing a land that synergizes with legendary creatures?
What's fear?
Fear is an ability that the creature can only be blocked by black creatures or artifact creatures. That's relevant. Thank you. Good question, Alex. So you know who happens to be legendary?
The Gitrog monster?
The Gitrog monster. Not Wheeler,
and
not
the
Gitrog.
Thalia in his mouth.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about Merit Lage. Merit Lage? Merit Lage. How do you pronounce it?
Merit Lage.
She already has evasion, though.
Yes, but there's a lot of little pesky flyers that can get in the way. And if you're in a quick race against a pesky blue deck, Vendilion Cliques, Nimble Obstructionists, even a Bird of Paradise, all these humble little creatures can stop your wonderful 2020 Flying Behemoth from ending the game. And
She's actually an avatar.
I thought you were going to do the other Shizo. Shizo Brickhouse.
What? No, you're thinking Shinka Bloodsoaked Keep.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
Yeah, God forbid your opponent casts Lingering Souls after you make a Merit Lodge.
Well, it can happen though.
Just like
I have won games off of, activate Merit Lodge. The blue player's like, okay, and like go to attacks, and they're like, haha. I flash in my Vendilion Clique. I'm like, haha, crop rotation. Get Death's, get Shizo Death's Storehouse.
You're dead.
Now you can't block, you're dead. And there are weird times where that one difference in turn is the difference between winning and losing a game. Now, outside of lands, I also like this card in some decks, not necessarily all decks. I'm playing a blue-black Ninja Tempo deck right now that has quite... you laughed, but I went spoilers for the stream.
I was clearing my throat.
Okay. But I got 3 wins last time I played this game.
Gotta be kidding me.
I know Allison. Actually, Allison is the one that originally introduced me to this card. She was playing it in the Rock. There's a lot of creatures. I mean, a lot of really good creatures are legendary, and it can sometimes offset the disadvantage of everybody running Krakus now. Is maybe you get a little bit of value out of your legendary creatures.
I've played this in a couple versions of Black Mold. It works. Trying to think of the best legendaries that it hits. Like a lot of the top end, like
Drona.
Oh yeah.
Drona and Cletus. They love going to Shizo for the holiday.
I love you.
Now there are downsides, because I was sitting at Yellow Jacket showing people my deck, and Wheeler walks by and sees Shizo, and he's like, Serge, Shizo's the reason that 2-color decks lose to Blood Moon. So,
Not Shizo
specifically. So you do have to be aware of any non-basic land you put in your deck is a liability, and you have to be selective. You can't just jam everything you want into there.
Yeah.
All right, let us introduce today's topic. Today we are going to be talking about monocolor decks. So welcome to, in our series of Let's Talk Abouts, monocolor. And normally at this point I would throw to Jer for an introduction. Jer, what's a monocolor deck?
Well, Serge, it's a deck that plays one color, sometimes with the addition of diamond mana pips.
Ooh. Good definition. I like that.
I mean, diamond.
Technically colorless, not a color, so it still fits it.
Boom. Got him.
It sometimes shows up as a technical second color.
Yes.
All right.
But technically it's not a color, so.
Right.
Let's move on. Something with a bit more substance.
Mission
How about why play a monocolor deck? I mean, we have access to the most powerful cards in the entire format. Why not just always play 4-color good stuff?
Elegance in simplicity.
Ooh, all right. Good start there.
I mean, it's also more than just words. You get a lot of advantages from playing a deck that's just trying to do one thing. You will hit your color pips more easily. You'll be able to play more pip-dense cards. You're less soft to non-basic hate. The list goes on. It's you sacrifice a little bit of the sort of diversity and flexibility that extra colors go. I suppose, broadly speaking, gaining focus by going into one lane.
Focus,
charisma.
You get redundancy.
Yeah.
You get consistency.
What do you mean by redundancy?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Serge.
Yeah.
So if you're a monocolor deck, as stated, and we'll probably get into it later, you might lack the flexibility of, say, a 3-color deck that gets to play the best cards of 3 different colors instead of just 1 color. But to make up for that, you get to pick a game plan and stick to it. So if your game plan is cast Shock or Lightning Bolt, you get to fill your deck with as many Shocks, Lightning Bolts, and creatures that can ideally replicate Shocks and Lightning Bolts.
Do you know how many 2Xs in white there are now?
At least
For how much mana?
1.
For 1, there's like 14.
There's many.
There's a lot.
14?
You can get up to...
I'd take the over on 14.
You can get
Really?
up to...
Wow.
Not,
It's
It's
like
actually
8.
ridiculous.
well, there's a lot of glasses pushing once you start getting past that, because you're just like, well, there's Figure of Destiny, and I mean, we could count Student of Warfare. Like, the amount of, like,
Boros.
aggressive...
What's the Boros one that has Battalion that's just really a 3/3?
It
the
shocks me you're not
Legion-
talking about Icehide Golem.
I know the one...
It's
Boros
Boros-
Elite. Boros Elite.
Yeah, that's the one.
But
Jeez.
like, yeah, when I was building mono white Blitz, and I was just like, all right, time for the ones. Let's be generous, and you would just like put in playable white 1-drops.
That's an interesting Google
You
search. All
Get
right.
up to. You get up to
There's
about.
a lot.
Oh god, you get up to about 34, like playable. Like just aggressive white ones.
So then you cut 10 lands
Yeah.
and then play the non-playable ones.
And that
as
is
well.
why you play monocolor. All right.
Good episode.
But yeah, because
Suntail Hawk. That's why.
because it's a vintage legal format, you are accessing the entire depth and breadth of the history. And while we can't have 4 copies of something, the longer back it goes, and the more closely you keep to one color column that's been doing the same thing for many years, the more likely you are to have cards that fulfill the same role as like that you want to perform in your deck.
One of the things I like about monocolor, and using sort of the example I stated earlier of the best card you're not playing, it gets you access to utility lands you might not otherwise get a chance to play. There's nothing that feels worse in a 2 or 3 color deck than having, 4 spells and your lands are Rishadan Port, Wasteland, and then maybe another utility land or something like that. Or basic. You're like basic mountain Rishi P Wasteland, and you're looking at, elf. Yeah,
cryptic
yeah, yeah.
And you're like,
Not feeling so good right now. So it's an opportunity to maybe play some of those more flexible cards. I think there's a great example in White Weenie and Death and Taxes. Oh, my great example just left. What is the white land that target creature gains protection from artifacts?
Tower of the Magistrate.
Yeah.
It adds colorless.
Yeah.
And it adds colorless. Yeah, Tower of the Magistrate. Great example of a card that you're never going to see in a lot of decks. That suddenly you have an opportunity to roll in this one. So Tower of the Magistrate, tap, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. 1 and tap, target creature gains protection from artifacts until end of turn. In the creature mirror, where your opponent might be carrying around a Jite, you can just be like, sorry, turns out your creature is afraid of that Jite, and they just have to drop it.
It's pretty good against like Batterskull.
Target the germ.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's so much value you get. I mean, this might be an interesting candidate for best card you're not playing in the future too, but the sort of wonderful, powerful effects in lands that are a liability in 2 and 3 color decks suddenly become all-stars in monocolor decks.
I think I've already used this one as the best card you're not playing.
You also start getting into cards and strategies that take an advantage from going into monocolored. So mechanics like devotion start becoming important, where they would be completely awful in a 2, to say nothing of a 3-color deck. There's ones that care about color density. There's ones that care about
Number of
color
lands you
presence.
have.
There's, just lots of cards that it matters if your deck is 1 color.
Hey, Alex.
Hey, what?
Vidalcan Shackles.
I hate you.
I miss playing Shackles.
I don't want to talk about it.
All right, that's fair. Anybody else want to talk any more specifically on why play monocolor? I think we gave a pretty good argument, compelling reason why to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different way to build a deck.
I mean, in 2019 way, like I have a reason to play monocolored, especially
Ancient
now that we're
mana?
in 2019. Well, no, I mean I was going to get to Ancient 2 mana later. You got to get the Arc.
Oh, sorry. It's a
no,
two-handed
okay.
arc.
Just don't ever do it again. But the cards are just good. like nowadays, like if you're playing a monocolor deck, you're not sacrificing card quality like you would have 5 years ago.
Sure.
Like, have you seen some of the cards from Eldraine? They're absurd.
Yeah. Well, wasn't core set, was it the latest core set that had the triple pip cards to really lean you into that?
Dominaria.
Dominaria, was it? Because
Which ones?
But
No, of course they
there's
had the
the
Cavaliers.
it had the Cavaliers.
no Cavaliers. Previous to Cavaliers, which was the set that had like
Steel Leaf Champion.
Yeah, Steel.
Dominaria.
That was
Yeah.
Oh, please, it's Dominaria. We had. Was it Kelly? Kelly, who worked on the set, came in and specifically taught us how to pronounce it.
Dominaria.
It's the aria of
Dominus.
curses. Somebody help me. Oh, I can't actually you and then get it wrong.
You know what triple green gets you?
What?
Yorvo.
Your
Yorvo.
That card womps.
I interrupted you. You were talking about something.
No, I was just going to talk about big dumb creatures.
And now they're getting better.
It's just
Oh,
cards
man.
in general are getting better, and especially in the past couple of years, like being in the past couple of years, being multicolor has moved away from like this will definitely slow down the power level of these cards to just like, okay, sure, Hydroid Krasis costs blue also. And instead, a lot of emphasis has been put on like, okay, if you want a 5/4 for 3 with evasion, you got to play triple green, or whatever it may be, or there's a huge emphasis on having a devotion to the color
like it.
itself.
So I like, let's think back through the history of Magic. In the old days, if you were mono black, you got Necropotence. And then a decade passed and you got access to Phyrexian Obliterator. And you're like, okay, that
Well,
feels pretty good.
You could be Mardu
couple
and have
decades.
Necropotence.
Couple decades and you're
Well,
like,
yeah, you
all
got
right, it's not too much
Obliterator
better.
And Geralf's Messenger.
But then I was going to say, and now suddenly Drolf's Messenger and all these.
Dreadshade.
You get Gary.
oh yeah, Dreadshade.
Yeah, and then again, if you go back in time, mono green. What was the best thing you got for triple green pips? That was that weird ooze, that 1/1, that
Predator
know.
ooze?
Yeah.
Hold up, Leatherback Baloth
Yeah.
came before.
Okay, yeah, but like you wouldn't play a deck just for Baloth, but you're looking at triple.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Force
sorry,
of
sorry,
nature.
sorry.
Can I get
All
a
right.
Chloraplant or a Chlorophant? What the hell is it called?
can't-
It's trips green. It's a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a counter on it, and threshold at the beginning of your upkeep, you put another counter
my
on
God.
it.
What about the
Amazing.
one that's the 8/8 that's cost reduced for each green symbol you have in
Oh,
play?
Colony Hydra?
Yeah.
It's so big.
Yeah. Like,
Okay, well, all right. Maybe green had this for a while here, but if you're talking,
Monocolored decks and the emphasis for
hold
monocolored
on,
decks.
Colony
Yeah.
Hydra. Is that 8 green pips in the casting cost?
Yeah.
So
yeah, but
8/8
really
for
it's like
8.
2.
A Hydra costs a green pip less to cast for each green creature you control and has trample. Why aren't green decks playing this? It seems so free.
Because in 2019, you can pay 4 mana and get like a 9/9 trample that can't be targeted by spells or abilities.
All right, fair.
But like the emphasis on mono green, like for powerhouse cards, isn't exactly brand new.
Sure.
Right? Ball Lightning, Nantuko Shade.
Oh, Ball Lightning, yeah.
I'm sure
Didn't
White
White
has some
ever-
cards too. White never gets anything.
White had a good creature.
once.
maybe.
No,
Yeah.
they just get really good bears and
Dawn
bunkers.
Elemental.
But I was going to say, the old weird white triple pip cards are like, have a bodyguard. It's a 2/6, and you can redirect damage to it once.
Yeah,
You're like,
that's
okay.
that's
Great.
classic white throughout Magic, where it's just like black, the emphasis on black pips. You got Necropotence. Yeah, that's pretty good. And
Drain
white,
Life.
White is just like no. We need quad white pips, and you get a 3/3 that prevents damage. Delta.
Whoa, slow down.
Yeah, once per turn for 2 mana, you can redirect 1 damage to it. You're like, this sucks? Yes.
Just like, what about a Glorious Anthem on a creature? That one's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting into it right now, which is key themes for the colors and standouts. So why, let's go through them all the time. Why mono red? I mean, we did the shock example.
That's the biggest redundancy
It's
color
absolutely
in
insane.
our format. It's just like
Well, yeah, because like the simplest, you can break down mono red into the simplest card, which, as Ben said earlier, is shock and variants thereof. You just play a deck of shocks,
and better.
and you cast turn 1 shock, turn 2 shock, shock,
Is-
turn 3 shock, shock, shock.
Is Burn the most math deck where you really want to get the cost breakdown to damage per mana cost?
Math nerds love burn.
Yeah.
If that makes, if that adds to it. I mean, it's certainly up there where you can kind of like it's one of those decks where again you need to it gets a bad rap, right? Because you're just like, oh, I'll throw lightning at
Yeah.
you and fire at you and I'll attack with my goblins.
Yeah.
But it does take. That's a very like a level 1 thinking for that
Sure.
strategy.
And
but-
at level 5, you're back to that.
but
right?
like honestly, a lot of your cards are not great, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of just like I'll play a 2/1 that if it's dealt damage, I die for 1, and and they're like, yeah,
I got one for you. It nugs your opponent, doesn't remove anything, doesn't deal with planeswalkers, just nugs your opponent.
Lava Spike.
Lava Spike.
But you play these cards and they're not going to really stand up to again stuff like Questing Beast or whatnot. But because you have so many of them and because you sequence them properly and try to like squeeze all the juice
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
these cards, it is a terrifying and extremely powerful strategy.
Yeah, I mean, like, the cards are, broadly speaking, I think they are the most efficient damage for their mana cost. So you get stuff like Hellspark Elemental or, what's the ones with Vanishing?
Keldon
Yeah,
Marauders.
Keldon Marauders.
Oh.
Which is like, it's
OG.
a 3/3. It only gets attack once, but it nugs them for 1 when it enters and leaves.
Yeah.
All right, so we understand red.
Yeah.
We've talked briefly on white. What's a key theme? What is a key theme from mono white that you're playing? Is it aggro? Is there anything else? We haven't heard from Jer from a bit.
You're coming to me for the mono white deck.
Well, all right, I'll throw to you for blue. I'm sorry.
Taxes.
So,
Yeah,
like
sure,
aggro
sure.
and taxes are the 2 themes. Anything else?
I think this is probably the best and colorless deck. Ben can maybe correct me.
This
but-
is it. Okay, so it is, and here's why. Because mono white is known for making it very difficult for your opponent to cast spells. But similarly, all these cards are symmetrical, or most of them are. So you'd assume that the mono white deck also wouldn't be able to cast their spells.
No.
Except they just have white creatures, just dorks. And
Can
so
you give me an
just
example
need
of a tax card?
Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
All right, and then
Classic.
real quick.
1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary human soldier that has first strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast.
Sacrifice this creature to another creature named the
The
Gitrog
Gitrog
monster.
Yeah, Gitrog monster is now no longer hungry.
Make Reddit go crazy.
It's how they fuse. But
It's actually meld.
I'm so angry right now.
augment.
Woo, got him.
But you have like the taxation from a lot of the white cards doesn't matter as much to you for a couple of reasons. 1, you're a white deck, so you have cheap, efficient pressure. And 2, your spells, usually that cheap, efficient pressure, are very easy to cast or to get into play. And then you're also a color that has a lot of tools to disrupt mana bases. Which means that your mana rocks are going to be better. Because if you Armageddon and you have a Mox Pearl, doesn't die. Your flagstones gets blown up and finds you another thing. So being able to disrupt their board, and then have a way to take advantage of your fast mana, which can often be colorless, which means, hey, I have this fast, excessive amount of colorless mana. What's a good thing to spend that on? Reality Smasher and Thought-Knot Seer and Walking Ballista or equipment. It's kind of this beautiful web of things that connect together to make it, again, a very scary deck.
All right, let's throw to Jer for his favorite color, mono. I'm kidding. Talk about blue.
Excellent. Yeah, so there's a few things you can do with blue. You can play like a big blue artifact deck.
Oh yeah, we didn't even go small mono blue. Big blue.
Which is once again dips into colorless cards, but not necessarily needing colorless pips. You have the best landed Magic, Tolarian Academy. That one makes a lot of blue mana. It's not hard to find something useful to do with that. You can play mono blue Tempo, which is where you just play usually little dumb idiots with flying and some counter spells and maybe a time walk. You can play my favorite mono blue deck, which is mono blue no win con control, where your deck is literally 40 counter spells, 35 lands, and
you bore
25 draw spells.
Have we ever done the April Fools try and go in for the 003 bracket?
It's already been done.
Has it?
Stefan Bard is 004'd.
Yeah, 004 an event. He tried to go for a 007 at what god, it was like a regionals or something. He tried to go for 007 and then ended up like accidentally winning a game. Like his opponent conceded and he's like, no,
my record.
Oh my god.
Yeah, where your win con in the mono blue control deck is just showing they have no cards, you have 7. You show them your 7 cards are all counter spells and you hope they concede. If they don't, you get to have more fun. They don't. So who's really winning?
Awesome.
All right, that's blue. If that appeals to you, check it out.
Jesus.
I'll cover green. Green's classic examples, we talked about this a little bit, but are Acceleration and Big Dumb Idiots. If you like big creatures, if you want to go fast, if you want people to tremble before the might of your 4/4s for 3, that's a good color for that. And Alex, tell us a little bit about black. What does black have to offer?
We've mentioned on the podcast a lot that black is one of the most greedy mana, like in terms of pips, the most greedy color. So when you cut away all the other colors, it's suddenly in its element, and you're going to be able to hit those pips easily and exploit a lot of cards that care about black mana, that care about having black creatures. The Shades were brought up. These are creatures that have fire breathing. Well, it's actually better than fire breathing because they get +1/+1. Usually
big difference.
Yeah, usually for just a black mana, but it has to be black. So if you're only playing that color, you can do that. You can gain access to like drain life effects, which are quite strong, but again, have to have lots of black mana. Like every non-black mana that you have is going to make all those effects worse. There's some weird triple pip cards that you get into. There's one that I've been trying to remember the name of. It's from...
Thematic. What kind
does it
of
do?
set does it look like?
It's from the Frost set, the second one. Cold Snap.
Okay.
It's triple black.
Garza's Assassin.
That's the one, thank you.
Oh!
Okay,
Or
so...
Gazra's Assassin.
Are you two drift compatible? How?
You vaguely describe a card and I'll know
and
it.
he'll get it, yeah. So yeah, Garza's Assassin is, I think it's like a 2/2 for black.
Yeah.
You sack it to Doomblade something.
You're forgetting that you have to pay half your life.
Hey, no.
To cast
you
it?
have it
Hold on,
wrong.
here we go.
Yeah, okay, so Human Assassin, sacrifice it, destroy target non-black creature.
Yes.
It has the mechanic Recover,
Right.
which is pay half your life rounded up.
You don't have to.
You don't have
may.
to. This is optional. When another creature is put into your graveyard from play, you may pay half your life rounded up and put this back in your hand.
You have tried to get me with this before, which is pretty interesting.
Do you know what gets this back?
What?
Unearth.
You know what also gets us back? Paying half your life. I mean, if you're playing this, you
Putting that
pay
out
half.
there,
Yeah.
just saying. But yeah, you get access to like weirdo little tools like this.
You get the sweet cards, Cruel Bargain and Infernal Contract.
More paying half your life.
Yeah, while we're on the topic.
What do those do? I'm noticing a theme of paying a lot of your life here.
Black.
Infernal
Draw
Bargain,
4, pay half your life.
Wee.
Interesting. So for a while in the format, and specifically in Victoria, there was the thought that mono black was the weakest deck you could play as far as like competitive decks went. We had the mono black challenge for a long time.
Right.
Sorensen had up a bounty that if you could win a Highlander tournament, he would just give you a bloodstained mire. Oof. And that bounty went unclaimed for years. And I tried for a while. I remember myself and Mac were tooling mono black controlled Pox for a while, trying to get into there.
Oh, right, Pox.
And having a really good time with that one. Pox is, of course, another strategy that shares this theme of mutual attrition.
Trips black.
Yeah, trip black. Each player loses a third of their life, then discards a third of their hand, then sacrifices a third of their creatures and a third of your lands, everything rounded up. Pox, small pox, a lot of wonderful effects like that. And ultimately, I believe the bounty was claimed by Nelson, playing mono black aggro. He just went low to the...
I thought it was Shane Harwood.
Was it Shane on mono black?
I mean, not to ruin the magic of this, but the challenge had been met by multiple people before then. It just never had been claimed.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Shane and Josh. I don't know if he wants me to say his last name. Josh M.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They have both. They had both won with mono black.
Prior to this?
Yes.
Okay. So that was interesting. How do we, if we had to rank them right now, I mean, you started saying mono white is the strongest. Mono red is...
What?
No.
Mono red is...
Oh.
We just said mono white is the best color to pair with the diamond
Yeah.
symbols. We said it's the best diamond symbols deck. We didn't say it was the best monocolored deck.
Mono red, like mono white, one of the best decks in the format. It's great. It's customizable. Gets new cards every set. Here's mono red, and mono white is like here-ish.
How can you say something's the best in the format and then except if you ignore this deck that's better than it?
Have you played red? I mean, that's also, it's just like, okay, so you have these archetypes that are like the untouchables, effectively.
Okay,
and then you go down to the mortal world.
Sure, there are the old gods.
Yes, basically.
All right.
Oh, my time.
Okay.
Fire Blast is a terrible.
So who takes third place here in blue, black, or green?
Green.
It's got to be green.
All right, and then fourth place?
Blue.
All right, poor mono black. Still in last place.
But it's not bad now. Like,
Well, sure, but all right, let's
It
talk
used
about...
to be a meme.
Yeah.
We have the weaknesses of monocolored decks.
Great.
and this segues into it nicely. Why does black struggle?
Can I introduce you to two entire card types?
All right, go.
Artifacts and enchantments.
Well, and also as exemplified by the cards we showed you, every second card incentivizes you to pay half your life,
Yeah,
and you could only do that so many times.
Also, like
before.
Oh, wait, this
gonna
one
die.
lightning bolt just kills you, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're actually talking about a big part of the reason why I started developing black mold in the first place, because it's like I like mono black aggro, but it has this huge weakness to artifacts and enchantments, among other things. So adding green to it gives you answers to those, and also accesses you into a lot of like big, thick boys, as well as like hybrid cards that have the advantages of both. And there's still cards that leverage your life total, but in pretty efficient ways. Like Putrid Leech is kind of a banger. If it was this hit single, it'd be a banger. Just
Well, green.
get 'em.
I mean, the life loss and the inability to deal with two. I mean, enchantments, they're not super popular, but artifacts sure
Yeah.
are. In
Yeah.
fact, there are decks that, dare I say, are built around artifacts. And so being able to blow up these artifacts is often handy, and something that pretty much every deck in the format needs some kind of way of dealing with them, or completely ignoring them
Sure.
And
You just go fast enough to get around them.
I'm
trying to remember.
Born too late to explore the world and too early to explore space.
But what about, isn't it Phyrexian Altar? Isn't that a black card that deals with artifacts?
That's a colorless card.
That's a mana sink. You're talking about Gate to Phyrexia.
Yeah.
Ah.
Nobody plays that.
Or the Gremlins. Gremlins
Hold on.
also.
Now what?
Sorry, the what?
There's Gremlins.
Let's show. I think the only card black has to deal with artifacts. Gate to Phyrexia.
Gate to Phyrexia.
Yeah, I remember it had Phyrexia in the name, and it was some type of structure.
This card is an absolute classic in my mono black commander deck, by the way.
Stop.
But that's where it stops.
I remember, I mean, when I was in the Mono Black Control Pox Challenge, and I was like, I just keep dying to all these artifacts, and this was in the case. Gate to Phyrexia, black, enchantment. Sacrifice a creature, destroy target artifact. Activates this ability only during your upkeep, and only once each turn.
I don't understand it. I keep losing to these artifact decks. Yeah, you know what? I found the answer. I'll play this absolutely unplayable card.
But
that'll help me out.
Even then, I mean, I remember going up to YJ and Ed being like, I got this Gate to Phyrexia in the case, and looking at it being like, I mean, I'm dying to artifacts,
It's
but
even worse than I remember.
but I'm like, is this seriously the only answer?
Technically, if you can ultimate your Liliana of the Veil,
Oh, right.
you can put all their lands in one pile, and then
Just give Mono, like, the color black, big ups for sticking to that part of the color pie over all these years.
Like by now, they've tried to be like, all right, here you go. You've asked for an answered artifact in black, and people are like, yeah, and they're like, it's 1 mana, it's efficient. They're like, yeah, and they're like, here it is, Artificer's Hex. It's a black aura that causes its artifact's controller to lose life every turn, and you're just like, sorry, it's even worse.
It's an enchanted quit.
Oh my god, it's even worse than I remember.
Oh boy, that's close.
All right.
Why equipment? You just kill the creature. You're black.
Yeah.
Oh god.
what if it's Sword of Feast and Famine?
Yeah, relevant to
They really
Core
needed an
24.
out to Sword of Feast and Famine.
All right. So we can say maybe a reason why you don't play a monocolor deck is sometimes you lack flexibility. Sometimes your color doesn't deal with things particularly well. And that makes a lot of sense. So let's get into probably the topic I'm most excited about today, which is splashing.
Okay.
And this is where the comments are going to get really angry at us. Let's start right now
Don't prime them like that.
they're going to. I'm just
Don't give them ideas.
so
Prove him wrong.
No,
Yeah.
don't.
Prove him wrong.
I mean, wait, do.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk about. All right, here are the 3 questions I prepare for splashing. Why splash? What do you get when you splash? And what counts as a splash
Okay,
before
so
your
the
2-color
first
deck?
2 are-
Then we'll get to the last one later.
All right.
Let's cover this here. Why splash? And I think we got the answer to that
Yeah,
is
to cover up the absolute weaknesses that some decks have. Like
yeah. And actually, I think this is a topic a conversation I've had a lot with Nelly and Wheeler in particular, is when should you splash and what are you getting out of a splash? And I think this is something that's important not just in our topic, but in Limited, for example, as well, in Draft or in Sealed, when you're like, okay, I've got a really good deck. Mm-hmm. Could it be better if I add something to it? What is the cost associated with it? Like that is potentially even a subject for an entire thing. But what do you get when you splash? Why are we doing this, right?
I mean, I suppose it depends on
Yeah,
how
well,
much of a splash.
you're usually doing it to either dramatically increase the power level, or to allow your deck to do something it couldn't do by sticking to one color.
Do you have an example of a very light splash that makes a deck better?
I mean, it's debatable on whether it makes it better, but one of the classic ones is Red Deck Recall, where you splash Ancestral Recall and Spellseeker and maybe a Mystical Tutor into your mono red deck. And then you have Ancestral Recall, which fixes the problem of most of the games you lose with mono red. You flood out or run out of gas. So having a card that says draw 3 lightning bolts or 2 lightning bolts and a land is pretty good, and both of the other cards find the best card in your deck, which is not recall. It's still price of progress.
Yeah, this actually.
This was Red Deck Recall was more or less like this was like pre-Lotus in Red, where like I recall being that wasn't pun intended. I recall being on a plan of like recalls everywhere. Let's just throw recall in everything. Put it in red, and put it in goblins or whatever it may be. And like it fit very well with the point spread because you have Mox Ruby and then Strip and then and then recall was like 5 points at the time when this deck first popped up. Chances are the best thing to do, but it's again if you're taking like the best deck in the format or one of the best decks, just adding and it sounds weird to say because like it's never bad to like if you could just free roll add a recall.
Sure.
Is your deck made worse? No, probably not. But like there is a cost associated with it. It's not huge, but for something like red, it can be enough.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And like, what really are you like nowadays? Are you really getting enough over slotting in recall?
Yeah. There's another deck. White Weenie is advantaged by having just a little bit of black.
Yeah.
Because Zealous Persecution is really good with multiple creatures. I hear that Lingering Souls is a good card.
Wheeler, you got some opinions here.
I'm
What's
a fan
up?
of Tide Hollow Sculler.
I'm just going to say number 3. To me, that's number 3.
Wait, what?
In the 1, 2, 3 that you set up.
What's the first
like adding black to Death and Taxes creates an entirely different archetype, and it's not a splash. Because the cards that you're adding, if you look at all the winning or most of the winning lists, I'm going off of the ones that Adam won with, that is top 8'd
Sure.
with. And,
I agree.
That's why I said White Weenie.
Right, but
not D&T.
Well, I mean, both of them can like benefit from similar cards.
But now we're getting into like what? Now we're getting into whether or not this justifies
Is that a splash or two-color deck?
Because adding black to the Death and Taxes deck
changes the identity.
Yeah, you add a huge amount of cards, a large amount of cards for like a big W lowercase b, and the like other cards that you have that aren't like that are mono white cards, those change as well because the other cards that you're adding, the inclusion of hand attack, you get more priority is put on having your hate bears or your creatures do something else because your disruption is covered.
So that's a 2-color deck.
Yes,
All
that's
right.
what I'm saying.
All right,
Which brings us neatly to...
Yeah, let's step out really quick and let the arguments begin. What counts as a splash? Where is the line between a splash and a 2-color deck? And I'm sure there are some purists out there who are like, if you include one card out there, you can no longer call it mono. But, you know, we've seen a history of Magic formats and top 8s for everything, like Mardu mono red.
Like,
you know,
I'm sure we can all agree that just like playing Bayou and Deathrite Shaman is a splash or not even a splash.
It's
in your
just
mono black, sure.
It's a sneeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I think something has to change a deck's fundamental game plan or give it something that it couldn't do before. Like in the example of the black-white Death and Taxes as opposed to mono-white, now it's casting a lot more. You're essentially doubling or sometimes more the amount of removal you have in your deck. You're adding disruption in the form of hand attack that you literally had none of before.
So
decks actively have to play differently. Like against the mono white Death and Taxes deck, you can tutor a card to your hand and it's safe. They're not getting it up unless they draw their one of Thought Knot Seer if they're on the Eldrazi. But in this one, they have like maybe 6 cards that can attack your hand. So cards are much less safe in your hand. So decks actively have to think about different things and play differently.
So you're saying if you sit across a deck, if you sit across from it and it changes the way you play, then the splash is now part of the identity?
Yeah, whereas like...
You're not changing... I guess against mono red recall, you're not changing how you play. Because
exactly,
the recall is just more burn spells.
You're not changing anything. And
So the addition of another color is enhancing the existing game plan rather than fundamentally changing it.
And so, like, Hoof is somewhat similar for me. Basically, whichever color they're splashing. For me, I consider them a splash. your game plan is essentially the same, whether it's white or red or blue.
Because like
their fundamental game plan is the same, and the way you have to play against them is mostly the same, regardless of what.
Like the blue splash gets you like what opposition, and
sometimes you play time walk, sometimes you play.
I guess you could play Hydroid Crisis with that much mana.
Yeah, like the blue one's relatively unexplored.
And then the white one, well, I've played against the white one.
The white one, they have like Elid Amri's Call and Knight of the Reliquary, and they usually play like
Knight of Autumn,
Devoted Druid combo. And
So here's a question: is there a card count that we can agree on, or at least discuss, that is the difference between a splash and a 2-color deck?
Do you want each person's individual opinion?
Sure, Ben.
I like 3 to 6, maybe 5. But like again, it also fluctuates, right? Like if what you are adding is synergizing with other pieces, to me, if it's a splash, if it's synergizing with other pieces of your deck but providing something that you would not have available if you didn't include the other color, like a Renin 6 in a blue-green tempo deck, chat, or I mean, that's just the example that I'm going to run with. Stuff like that, or adding Leovold to a blue-green tempo deck because you have a Deathrite already,
Sure.
and like, you know, causing some kind of disruption on their end or whatever.
I love it when you're like the free splash, the fallacy of the free splash.
Yeah, it's just like for those decks, personally, I would still refer to them as blue-green, or it's mono-black, or whatever it may be. But depending on what type of cards you're adding and how many more, I think you have to allow for more cards to be considered just a splash, or less, right? Like if for Hoof, personally, to me, Hoof is always a green X deck. It's not a mono green deck to me, just because like the cards that get added to it, be it white, be it red, there are a lot of, first off, there's a lot of cards. There's about, I was doing the count of my hands for the last Hoof list I played that wasn't Blood Hoof. And you get up to about 8 or 9 red cards.
Okay, so 8 or 9 is too much for you to call it a splash.
That was too much.
All right, interesting. Okay, Alex?
It's subjective.
Okay.
I earnestly think that assigning a numerical value to like what counts and what doesn't count is futile. I think it's a little or a lot, and that's going to depend on player. It's going to depend on deck. I think it's absolutely just like a matter of personal opinion, like whether you think it counts as a splash or not, and somebody else is going to have a different opinion. So,
I mean, we all apparently have different opinions.
I don't know if that's like a diplomatic or boring answer, but that's
all right. I like that. I mean, adding to Alex's, I wonder if you can count the number of pips. So, do you splash? If you're splashing another color, does a double pip in that color count as a splash anymore? You know, is that the safe splash? Is that a greedy splash?
Double pipping?
Yeah.
What, like mad?
Like, famously, there was a green-white creature combo deck that played Kiki Jiki that had 0 red sources in the deck.
Right. All right, that's fair.
Are you splashing red if you're not planning on ever casting the card you're
Oh yeah,
adding
is
into your
Reanimator deck, the blue-black Reanimator reanimating, you know, Elish Norn or Iona? Yeah.
Does Dismember count?
Right?
Exactly. So, I mean, I suppose for the sake of that argument, if you are paying that mana cost properly, that pip would
count. Yeah, I guess I'm down for a lighter thing too, because I typically, especially when I used to play more Academy decks, I'd like to splash red for the Wheel of Fortunes and
Wildfire?
No. Who's the Goblin Planeswalker that lets you take Durettis? Like I loved splashing red for Durettis.
You said Goblin Planeswalker, in my head I was like, oh, Joyra, which is not. I don't know why. I got Joyra on the mind.
Wow. So that's interesting, because if I look at that card suite, I'd probably be in like the 3 to 5 card range. You know, Wheel of Fortune, Goblin Welder, Duretti. You're still laughing about Joyra, eh?
We're all still laughing about Joyra.
Yeah, it's neither a goblin nor a planeswalker.
All right, well done. Jerry, you got an opinion on that one?
Yeah, sort of just what I mentioned before, in that if adding isolate the color of the other color of cards you're adding, and if they like fundamentally change what the deck does, then it's probably a 2-color deck. If it's just like adding on to what the deck already did, I consider it a splash. But
I like that too.
I do want to make a quick comment on where it's not all just semantics.
Sure.
As somebody that tracked literally every deck that was played at a Highlander event in Victoria for several years, when it came to tracking what colors people were playing, or like, would you call, like, again, if I showed up with, if somebody showed up with a rug deck or a blue-green deck, would you call it rug if they had Ren and 6, Fire, Ice, and Temur Battle Rage in their deck, sort of thing? And like, these cards are very good, and they're probably winning more games off of the inclusion of these cards. Like, these cards are winning them more games or whatnot. So you have to, or if somebody brings mono white and they have some black in there, like maybe 6 black cards, 7 black cards, like, am I calling that
Right, when you're trying to represent the metagame, right?
And
Orzhov or mono gray.
Yeah.
And for the record, regardless of whether we consider it a splash or a 2-color deck, I'm including, like, if you're playing Ren and 6 and Temur Battle Rage and blue-green tempo, I'm adding a little R, regardless of whether it's a...
Did you want to just briefly explain the, like,
Splash,
uppercase, lowercase letters?
Yeah, so, like, when you're playing a deck, often I think it's a legacy thing, maybe. But, like, I use the naming convention of, if a deck is a major color in my deck, including it in an uppercase letter in the title, and if it's a color is minor or a splash or whatever you want to call it, including it as a lowercase letter.
I definitely felt that predated a lot of the 3-color names having wedges, like Bant. You know, if you're playing a Bant deck, are you playing green, white, lowercase U?
Well, it depends.
You're like, well, I think that
I've
naming
certainly
convention,
done
that naming convention probably predated, you know, shards and
It's,
block.
yeah, I mean, that name, it did, and that naming of
That's where bug came from,
green
right?
WU, yeah, is a lot more efficient than having, like, old names of, like, dump truck.
Yeah.
or jank.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? Describe, no, but very few people would use, like, Dega. What
Sure.
are you on? I'm on Ono Tempo.
Oh, boy. There's a lot of deck building websites that will often have icons for the decks, and they have, like, a large pip and then smaller pips listed in order. It's kind of a useful, like, just very brief reference.
Well, out of curiosity, then, perhaps this is our own bias. Is this whole conversation around splashing just a relic of an older time, and newer players like, I don't care, I just play Mardu?
It's the kids that are wrong.
Are we out of touch?
No, of course not.
I mean, in reality, it's probably whatever the most people recognize as the technically
As long as you can
correct
communicate things.
Yeah, it's like whichever is the clearest. And,
All right.
and it's going to be different for different people. So
All right, let's open up real quick to you can play anything in mono. You know, start wrapping stuff up like this. Any final thoughts on why to play, you know, mono color decks in our format, why to play them, why you love them?
They're also cheap, mostly. Like asterisk. Some monocolor decks are not
Yeah.
yeah,
cheap, but I think there are decks that are easy to start into, because a lot of the baseline, like playing a monocolored land base, is going to save you a lot, at least in the
On duels and
Yeah.
most fetches, yeah.
And depending on the deck, you're not even going to necessarily sacrifice a lot of power, because like there's an impression that's like, oh, if I'm not playing like 4-color, you know,
Mid-range,
Academy Time Work
Sure.
mid-range medium Bant Storm, I can't win in this format. It's like, that's not true. There's obviously advantages to having multiple colors in your deck and owning the cards that are required to accomplish that. But
You've inhaled a couple times, Wheeler.
yeah,
No, it's breathing.
Yeah.
No, but
classic blunder.
I think it's I'm with Alex on this. I think it's a good guiding tool, most importantly.
If you're like, especially if you're new to Highlander, I think starting with a color.
You like, as much as we're like, you can play anything. Sorry, at the table. As much as you're like, you can play anything in this format. Like, if you're brand new, you're like,
maybe don't dump in the deep
It's just
end.
like, oh my god, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, it's super handy to be like, all right, I got a simple question. What colors do you like? I'm like, I don't know, black. It's like, great, here's a mono black deck. And they play it, and they're like, I like this deck, but I don't like losing to artifacts. I'm like, all right,
well,
here's an Abrupt Decay. Here's the
Awesome.
you. Get in there.
I wish I could draw more cards. Well, we're here on Bug. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
I hate it. I can't seem to beat these blue decks, though. And I really like the card Vendilion Clique. All right, well, let's talk about Sultai for a bit, right?
Ooh.
Like, it's a journey. And that's not to say that if you play a monocolor deck and you like a monocolor deck and you stick on that, that's not a bad thing. It's just like, so how do you like red? Love it. You want to get off it? Nope. It's like, great.
Yeah.
Glad of it.
How many years? 15 now.
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
all right. All right, well, let's move on to our closing segment, Powerful Magic. You have to do both arms in a wave, Wheeler.
What?
Don't do it again. And up today, and up today for Powerful Magic, we have Jer. Jer, tell us a story of magic whoa or whoa.
This one's whoa.
Ooh.
This is actually from the most recent tournament I played. I was playing a new Spicy Brew Rug Super Friend Time Walk combo.
Hold on, slow it down a bit. Rug Super Friend Time Walk combo. That's a lot of words. That's a very loaded deck name.
Is that uppercase R? Uppercase?
Yeah, we're full on rug. Yeah, we got like, it's an area rug, not like a doormat.
Sure.
So the deck plays. Maybe I'll link the deck in the description.
Please.
That's probably a good idea. But it plays some ramp spells, some time walks, like 10-ish planeswalkers, and there's a few combos in the deck to try and win. Like, it's got some ways to recur time walk a bunch. It's got a couple other combos, which is where we're getting to. So it was round 3, but I'll walk you through the tournament a bit. I played against Pat round 1. He was playing a lands deck. We traded off games 1 and 2, and then game 3 we were having a super close game, and then I flooded out towards the end of the game, and he was able to take it down with severely underplayed card Field of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
That card is really, really, really good.
Turns out.
And yes, I know it's banned in Standard. There's a local joke going around that whenever anyone asks for this card, 4 people tell them it's banned in Standard.
That's so annoying.
Yes. Round 2, so yeah, I started 0-1. Then round 2, where the Powerful Magic story comes from, I'm playing a super close games against Bug midrange. We trade off games 1 and 2 again. We're game 3. I've been sort of behind the whole way. He eventually sticks a Gitrog monster. I bounce it twice to try not to die, but I'm at like 4. I leave a Gaunty in play. He has a Gauntied card. I'm trying to set up this dig through time. I've been like just trying not to die to this Gitrog monster the whole time, and like haven't been able to set anything up. Haven't been able to keep planeswalkers on the board.
Sure.
He's just been killing them. And so he attacks me down to 2, and then we're in turns, and he's going to win on his next turn because he has a Gaunty and a creature land. I was able to deal with the creature land. He still had a Gaunty. Attacks me to 2. Then I dig through time, and it's my last turn.
Okay.
And I'm able to survive this attack, and I find Dual Caster Mage and Twin Flame off my dig through time.
What?
And I have a Birds of Paradise in my hand that I was unable to cast. So from no board being super dead, I was able to cast Birds, Twin Flame it, hold priority, cast Dual Caster Mage, win out of nowhere. And my opponent was just like jaw on the floor, like thought there was no way they could lose. Turns out there was maybe a way they could have killed me on their last turn, but
Cool.
They missed it. They had a ton of decisions to make as well, but it was wacky. Deck is sweet. I'm gonna try to
you'll find
revisit it.
You'll find it in the description down below. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. It's good to be back. A reminder, the North 100 is brought to you by you, with your support over at the Patreon, over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.